welcome back. Once again, multi-session all-star cast discussing Michael Giancchino, the one, the only film composer of this day and age. Welcome, sir.
Always great to be here.
Johnny Mark, leaving his mark. So, once again, as he's going to lead the narrative, basically we all have a complex history with this film composer. We have all encountered him at some point or another.
Yeah, I sure did.
So, my intro to Michael Giancchino was the Medal of Honor video games.
I wasn't aware he was involved with those.
Yeah, so he scored the Lost World Jurassic Park video game. That was his break into the ring. And I believe he did one of the Call of Duties at least, but this is very unusual because usually it's you kind of just stay in your lane, and for this guy, that was his way in. And I do find it interesting how he's navigating literally 5 different categories, like Disney films, Pixar films, doing whatever J.J. Abrams does, and then do Star Wars and Star Trek, and then Marvel, and
now DC.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Now, so that's even more interesting.
Totally. And just such an unusual start. So he kept the J.J. Abrams and Spielberg contacts ready, but yeah, he also did the very first Call of Duty back when, Finest Hour, when they were doing World War II era. And it's interesting how essentially, he just was the go-to guy. If you had a video game or an independent film, he was the go-to guy. He must have just had a always reliable orchestra and would create themes at Disneyland, like Space Mountain was one. But so
later on,
totally. He in 2019 he came out with his own LP of original music, Travelogue Volume 1, featuring his Nouvelle Barnardaca Orchestra, described as a story in song. I have not listened to that one, but I'll check it out.
I might have to check that out.
Next time I download this artist's work through iTunes onto my phone, I might do that.
I might do the same thing as well.
So he was commissioned by the National Symphony Orchestra and Cincinnati Pops Orchestra, and to create a piece that celebrated the 60th anniversary of the founding of NASA. So he just must have some good contacts or enough people in marketing that just realize he can pretty much speak for any kind of live entertainment venue. Get everyone in the mood. But I do find that interesting. And he landed a marketing job at Disney and then began his studies in music compositions at Juilliard and then at UCLA. And so then, okay, so there you go. Then he worked his way up into the producing and then worked his way into the Disney Interactive division, and that's where he got to write music for video games. But so my bad. I thought he worked out with DreamWorks and then he was in Disney. But so what was your first interaction with him? His work?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, technically, his first movie that I heard his music before was The Incredibles.
Same.
The interesting part is I never really knew his name until I saw the film Jupiter Ascending, and the score impressed me that much that
his most infamous movie. And hey, it happens.
Yeah.
I failed to keep up with him after a while, but then I was really blown away by how just getting away from his giant, Pixar and other crowd pleasers, how he had done the scores for the real life survival movie, The Impossible, the dramedy This Is Where I Leave You, which had, Jason Bateman and Tina Fey, and then 50-50, the cancer survival movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But I had heard more of his video game scores than I even realized, with Mercenaries, World in Flames, and he even did the damn, Toy Story and Cars video game soundtracks at times. But yeah, I grew up playing Call of Duty and, Medal of Honor mainly, on the computer. So I was so used to hearing that. And then, you hear Mission Impossible Free and the Planet of the Apes scores and even Cloverfield Lost, and you're like, okay, so again, he's more present than you even realize.
Oh yeah, particularly later in his career. Even like the anime films that he was a part of, like
Totally.
Speaking Pixar, like Up, or even one anime film that he scored that I quite like was Zootopia's. They managed to find the right balance between what they usually do with anime films and also almost like an action type of score on the chase scene, which was fascinating to hear.
Yep. Well, you and I hate to use the word guilty pleasure, but so we're defenders of John Carter, but I do think the score is definitely the biggest highlight of that damn movie, because basically it just more or less, it just captures the escapism, and everyone is so busy, talking about the behind the scenes chaos and whether or not they like the movie. And it's just like, well, there's nothing wrong with the effects or the music, that is for sure. And if there is, then we're just going to have to disagree, because you got to be able to dissect a movie, man. You got to.
Some people can't do that.
They can't do it. He did the score for the short-lived TV show Alcatraz. I thought it was okay, but it was definitely suspenseful. And then did Fringe, and then even did some of the Toy Story shorts, like Toy Story of Terror, which is a very funny out of all the shorts they did. But I just loved how he was already part of the Star Wars franchise before he actually joined it, because he scored Star Tours. And when I went to Disneyland around mid to 2000s, I definitely, that score stood out. And, it wasn't trying to copy John Williams or just replay the theme. And obviously, I think, like I say, Incredibles is probably the most eye-catching, just because it has that, just lampooning the whole, superhero genre, and then kind of making fun of just other factors of it while being still epic in its own right. And recently he's done other stuff. Obviously, he's loyal to mainly doing finishing up the Jurassic World trilogy, and also did the HBO Max comedy An American Pickle. I have not seen that. I don't really recall the score in Jojo Rabbit, but I know many others do.
He also had a very simple and effective score for Let Him Go, which is very indie drama thriller.
He does kind of have an indie feel to him, which is just very wild, because usually that it kind of just sticks with whoever's like the current indie go-to guy, like Tarantino kind of person. I will give him hats off to Rogue One, because like that score the entire time I wasn't even thinking about. It wasn't drastically different, and I think he just had enough of a way in. He kind of made it its own cool epic thrill ride, where I wasn't comparing it with whether or not John Williams returned. In fact, for the longest part, I did kind of think it was John Williams, and
same here.
I get to the end.
He still managed to bring his own unique approach to that score.
Yeah, if anything, that whole movie is basically doing what that part of Star Wars was inspired by, which is Guns and Navarone and other World War II spy movies. And you're like, yeah, so he's kind of going for that dun 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 dun. It could easily be an Indiana Jones score if he wanted it to be.
Yeah, it could be, actually.
The Zootopia score is interesting, I think, because basically it just makes use of a lot of tropical kind of music, but it doesn't feel derivative, say something like The Lion King or Wreck-It Ralph. It's kind of just doing its own thing. And he apparently did the score for Tomorrowland. And again, much like Jupiter Ascending, we're so distracted by the movie. There's lesser quality. We don't even think about the score, but I'm sure it was good.
Somebody doesn't hate that movie. I don't remember the score too well, so that should tell you something now.
So just doing what he had to do. I mean, I didn't hate it. I was just kind of like, meh. I was just like, I didn't remember it. And Super 8, I think I was just too distracted by just what an obvious knockoff of Goonies and E.T. it was. So he did his job. I'm just too distracted by the movie to be paying attention.
I'm sure that was a good score too, but like you said, that film looked too much like an homage to those films and not an actual real movie, to be fair.
Yep. Of all the animated ones, which one do you think has gotten the most visual?
Has gotten what?
The most emotional. Because like Inside Out, he makes heavy use of piano to where I can understand why people often come out of that movie crying.
Well, I feel like more emotional. It's probably Inside Out, you could say. That's, like I said, more people cried at the end of that film than in most films I'd see. I mean, I wasn't one of those people, but just saying.
Yeah, just ease it out, man. Just make it. Yeah, no, I thought he was with the whole Planet of the Apes franchise, but I was mistaken. He only did the sequels, Dawn and War, and he makes good use of trumpet in those, while kind of doing more just kind of. He definitely complements the 70s feel that those were trying to recapture. But yeah, he also did Let Me In, so Matt Reeves kept him on his horror films for a while, and that kind of makes sense why he was on the latest Batman film. I do like his Star Trek scores. I think that's pretty much the essence of what Star Trek's supposed to be. It's just, again, it's kind of Star Trek in name only. Again, just escapism, popcorn, turn your brain off. It's not a thinking man's like it's supposed to be.
And if you can deal with that, then
that's what it is. I do kind of like his Doctor Strange score. He makes use of a lot of suspense in that, and that's why they've reused it in some of the other Marvel movies.
I don't believe it's a sequel, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, good on him. I
don't believe it. It's not. No.
Well, take it with a grain of salt.
You're saying.
I'll see when I believe it. Colin Trevorrow, the World director, reused him for the World War II growing up movie, The Book of Henry. And I tried getting into this. And again, it's a good cast. Dean Norris, Lee Pace, Bobby Moynihan, and of course Naomi Watts. But yeah, this was just very unimaginative. It's a very bland family movie.
Well, it's like they didn't know what it wanted to be: a family movie, a thriller, a drama.
Yeah, I think it even
used.
It got a PG-13. I was just like, yeah, is this for kids? For teens? We're not in the 80s anymore where we just have to say, well, suck it up. There's 10 minutes are pretty harsh and then it gets better. And the Austin Chronicle gave it a 0, calling it the most misguided film since the Gary Oldman Abomination Tiptoes.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't go that far, but Jesus, it's pretty dumb. And I wanted to like it, saying maybe there's over on the cover. Maybe Colin won't do another shitfest like Jurassic World, but nope, it's bad.
That's probably why he didn't do his Star Wars film that he wanted to do.
Thank God. So he's done Star Wars audio comics. He even did an episode of Star Trek Short Tracks. But I definitely recall his score for Let Him Go, the Kevin Costner, Diane Lane neo-Western. I think the other problem is it's a little too familiar, so it's just serviceable. But I'm glad he branched out and did something else. He can do one of these gritty PG-13 or R-rated, mainstream independent films, as opposed to only stay in just the, something with the word star or Pixar in it. And apparently Pixar has a web series called Pixar Popcorn, which basically just takes a collection of their shorts. So he's credited for that, obviously. This is the confusing part of IMDb, where they'll list it 5 multiple different times, where you're like, okay, which is it?
We'll return after these messages.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
Also in the can, he has Thor 4, Love and Thunder, and he has the animated Buzz Lightyear. So I'm tempted to see that Lightyear, because I'm just like, okay, Pixar still has a soul.
For now, we'll see if that.
For now. How dare you, sir?
I know people.
Even when Pixar disappoints me, I can't say they've sold out like DreamWorks.
I had a joke about that. Oh boy.
Oh shit. Oh man. So that has a pretty cool cast. Keke Palmer, Takiti Watiti, and even James Brolin are all part of this cast.
I know he was part of the cast. Interesting.
So they had to give a disclaimer. It's like it's about the astronaut, which Buzz Lightyear is based on. Like, okay, interesting. But what I do find interesting is how Giancchino, he got all that experience at Disney to where they allowed him to produce, write, and direct individual shorts and episodes of TV. So it is interesting. More or less, it seems like he kind of just goes with the flow on anything. And I've never heard, most music composers seem to be pretty cool, but I've never heard anyone say he takes too long or isn't unhelpful or even complain about his score being out of place. So
you never hear of him getting replaced by anybody.
Yeah. And I guess he's just theatrical enough that, his score could literally work in any kind of movie without feeling out of place. And he's shown up and even won a bunch of animation and comic book themed awards. A good podcast he's been on that I have listened to is Light the Fuse, which chronicles the whole history of the Mission Impossible franchise, the TV shows, the movies, and all the on-made projects like Oliver Stone's movie that was in production hell for years. And he's been a guest on there twice.
I'm meaning to listen to those episodes recently, so I have to actually listen to those.
Oh, good. He definitely fills in the blanks. They've been fortunate enough to find what guests they found. And overall, I mean, he's just kind of one of the few who's been able to kind of have a similar score, but really make it his own instead of just. It's hard to describe this to other people because we're just so used to just adoring them, and it takes so much re-listening and observation. So I'll just end this with a quote. I think my writing has an old-fashioned feel to it for whatever reason. I'm just so influenced by the music I listened to growing up, a lot of it out of the 60s, so it has a natural tendency to feel like it's from another era. So, very nice. Second quote. I do pick projects because I love them. If I get into a project where I feel like either the people are there just because it's a job for them and it's not going to be an enjoyable process and it's going to be a war zone to get through, I always say no to that regardless. Money is kind of irrelevant in all of this. Interesting.
Not all of them think like that.
Interesting. So he's got 84 wins and 111 nominations. That's one hell of a. I don't think I've seen anyone with that many wins.
I don't think I have either. Hey, you can at least say that. Not even the best gets that many awards.
He seems to be pretty unrecognizable. You see him often clean shaven in those award show pictures, and it's like you see him in all the close-ups, and he's got a beard.
Guess that's his choice.
He can do it. Doesn't have to worry about appearance. So, any other just kind of closing thoughts that you'd like to?
Well, he's definitely, I'd say, a very interesting composer. I say he's very diverse, spanning across different genres, and he manages to make, well, whatever film he works on, work to either his advantage or its advantage, depends on the film, of course. But he's one of the few composers nowadays, along with ones like Lorne Balfe, who I'd say at least tries to steer the film's direction.
Yep.
So
I see he also is often at movie premieres with his pal Tom McDougall, who is probably best known for scoring a bunch of Disney TV movies as well as Ralph Breaks the Internet, but he also came up with a bunch of, he wrote some of the songs to Zootopia. And some of the various Pixar movies. He's an executive music producer, so that's cool.
That makes sense.
His other credits include the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, and Soul for Pixar. So, but yeah, no, I think you pretty much summed up. He's just a loving guy and pretty well deserved acclaim. Can't say you don't feel anything from his material. And
I can't say that at all. He at least manages to bring some kind of emotion to you. Unlike some composers which feel very empty.
Yeah. Or too repetitive, or again, they're kind of a has-been where they're just hired just because at that point the filmmakers will only work with them at that point and they get the right to do it because they got all the time and money in the world and acclaim. I'm okay with people reusing him on this one because it just seems like, again, he can't go wrong. He is inspired to change it up often.
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well.
I'm surprised he hasn't. I mean, I think the best is even more to come. He's already done some of the best, so I mean, I'm going to continually look forward to being surprised.
Same here. He is one of the few that does choose his projects carefully. You could tell. It depends upon the filmmaker, of course.
Right, as opposed to sticking with just only one franchise.
Yeah.
He's also done a bit of theme music, believe it or not. So I didn't see Vivo. That was a Lin-Manuel Miranda starring Netflix movie. It was Zoe Saldana. I did forget that he did score individual episodes of a few different cartoons, and as well as what was it called? Captain and the Winter Soldier, and he's got this cartoon called Owl House. And I forgot that Star Trek Prodigy, that theme music is by him, but there's this one thing called Dog Days, which is on Disney and Pixar produced thing with a dog. I haven't seen that. Apparently contributed to the Mitchells versus the Machines and a few other just like films within films, but apparently he's now that Paramount Pictures theme that plays before the feature is apparently him. So he's taken it over since about 2018, 2017.
I noticed that he also got to direct his first movie, a Marvel Halloween special.
Oh wow! Okay, shit.
It's on Disney Plus. I'm assuming around October this year. They told me that. I'm not sure, but I just noticed that.
Interesting.
Well, they have started filming. Okay, it's already finished. Okay, I'll be curious about that.
Oh, I will look forward to it as well.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up